What's going on, good people? This is Sim here from the Fusing Shop. And I actually thought the GoPro was working, but for the first half of this video, the GoPro is out of commission as I show all the tools and everything to the GoPro. So for the time being, I have one camera going. I am going to jump to two a little later on in this video. So we're just going to jump right into this right now. I'm going to chuck up my 14 millimeter ground joint tool, or joint tool I should just call it, joint forming tool, and some green tubing to get us started. Gonna get this nice and tightened down, and my apologies for the back of my headshots in this video due to the GoPro not working. You know, it's funny, I just bought like the new GoPro 10 and it keeps overheating in the shop, so I actually have to use my old GoPro 7 that actually does not overheat and that I can actually make a continuous video longer than 5 minutes for. So it's like crazy when you try to upgrade, things get worse. So I'm not too pleased at the people at GoPro because the new camera is supposed to be better and it's not so much better. Anyway, right now I'm just heating the end of that tubing and I'm going to close it down, heating that very end lip. It's already closed down by itself. And now I'm gently puffing into that tube. I'm using the graphite to cool the outer wall while I puff in. Keep everything nice and even and straight. And we want to make that bottom about the same thickness as the walls. So reheat, puff out if you gather too much glass, and make sure everything is nice and even before moving forward. We're going to make the joint part first. This is made with two pieces. And kindly smash that like button for me, good people. I use green to match the tubing that I'm using. What I did was I put the end in and then I drew a line so I could see exactly how much glass I need to heat up. And it also gives me a marker on how far I can insert this into the joint forming tool. This way you don't smash the glass or deform anything. So you want a nice smooth joint. And you could do this in 1 to 3 puffs. I'm going to go in, heat, and puff gently while the glass spins. And you can see how it's already starting to shape up into that cone shape. I'm going to reheat it again, get the whole thing nice and juicy hot, and then reinsert and puff it out again. Be gentle with the glass. You don't need to blow like you're trying to blow out 100 birthday candles. Just gentle puffs. You don't need a lot of force to get the glass to move. And we are looking pretty good here. Now, the bangers have a 90-degree elbow, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And I'm going to do that on the lathe, and it's pretty easy to do. I'm just going to heat up, gently heat up, use a nice bushy flame, and heat up a nice ring of glass. And when that glass starts to move just a tiny bit, I'm going to slow the lathe down and let it start drooping down. I am using air pressure to keep the tube walls even and keep that bend nice and smooth. You don't want to get a kink in it. Got to use the right amount of heat on both the outside and inside of the tube to get a nice smooth bend. There we go. Don't be bashful to reheat when needed. And you just want to use just enough heat to get the tubing to bend, and then you'll be all set. So the first half of the banger is done. We're going to go ahead and make the like cup half that this tubing is going to attach to. For some reason, the camera did not record when I scored and snapped this piece, but my apologies for that. All you have to do is make a tiny score, like an inch after that bend, and snap that glass, and then your joint should be pretty clean and easily attached to the cup. And I have some 25 millimeter tubing chucked up in the lathe. This tubing is heavy wall, so you have to heat it up nice and gradually or it'll crack. It's already jagged and kind of cracking at the end anyway. I'm going to put on a nice bushy annealing flame, and you can see that the GoPro is now back in action, which is awesome. And I just cracked off that end, and now I'm going to close it up, grab a piece of rod, and we're going to gently touch it to the rim when that gets nice and molten. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to draw your attention to kindly sign up for my Patreon page and become a supporter of my videos. It's only $5 a month, people. And I saw like I got over 800 views on my last video and no one signed up for my Patreon. So if you guys can sign up, that would be totally awesome. Like I say in all my videos, it does take me a lot of time and effort to make these videos, and I'm always happy to show what I know and give it over for free. But if you guys could kindly hit me with some love on Patreon, that would be awesome. Or just click the YouTube ads or like whatever. It's all good. All right. I might plug that again, so just giving you a heads up now. Now back to what we're doing on the lathe. Like I said, I heated up that rim, and now I'm using that rod to just gently close down that tubing so it's nice and solid. We're gonna form the base of the cup right now, which is a little bit thicker than the rest. And there's the link to my Patreon page for you guys who are interested in joining the Fusing Shop family there. So like I was saying, they are a little bit thicker on the bottom. I am using borosilicate. I do not have equipment to blow quartz, although quartz is preferable for this because of the high heat, but borosilicate works as well. And you could put your mini torch on there with no problems. You know, eventually anything you heat up and cool down will eventually crack. That's just the way it goes with glass. And I sell what's called cuvettes as well. And we have cryogenic ones, which go down to 77K, which is extremely cold. And those are also made from quartz. And it's just a matter of time before a customer breaks those. So anyway, what I'm doing now is I'm gathering up a little bit of glass and puffing out to make sure that it doesn't gather too much, because we don't want that gather to start forming on the inside of the tube, because that's going to make like a kind of like a dome looking structure in the middle of the cup. And we want that to be nice and smooth. You can kind of see it in this shot. There's like a little roundish dome sticking up in the middle, but we're going to get rid of that and make sure everything's nice and smooth. You can see how I use 2 graphite paddles to make that very sharp corner. And what I'm doing now is I'm heating up just that middle section to get that glass to move, and I'm going to blow it out, move it out, so again it gets nice and flat on the bottom while still maintaining that thickness. We want to keep that nice and thick. Just puffing, using the graphite, cooling the outer walls while I puff the middle out. And using a nice big hot flame for this, because it is a lot of glass that we're moving. And while I'm doing that, let's do today's dad joke. And it is, I keep hearing camo skirts are in this season, but I have not seen any yet. Definitely hard to spot that camo clothing, people. It works. Again, using the 2 marvers to form that 90 degree, that nice sharp 90 degree corner. And this is looking pretty good. Now, so you can see I snapped off that tubing, and that's what I'm lining up now. I left that joint closed. Oh yes, and please comment on the video. I love your comments, guys, and I love responding to them. I try to get back within a day or two. It doesn't always happen, but I try my best. And what I was doing just now, holding up the joint, was to size up that tube and how big of a hole I need to pop right here. So I'm spot heating the glass. And I'm gently putting pressure in and blowing it out. And I'm heating up a relatively large amount of glass right now and rotating it back and forth to get that heat nice and soaked in. Mostly focusing right on the middle where I want that hole to pop. And puff, puff, puff. You want to keep your flame on it so you do not get bubble trash. And you can see it just opened up right there. And if it's not big enough, you could just continue to heat and continue to blow, and it should open up that hole a little bit more for you. Or go in with a reamer, that works as well. And this is looking pretty good so far. Oops, sorry, my big head is in the way. There we go. Everything's looking good. Now we're going to heat both pieces up and hot seal these 2 together. Your goal at this point of making the hot seal, you want to get both pieces of glass molten hot. And you really want to do this in one shot. Mine did not go as planned, unfortunately. So I have to reheat and work that joint a little bit more. So just place it down. It shouldn't be too hot to hold with your fingers, and get it into the position that is good, which is usually like 90 degrees to that tube. Just fine tuning where I want it to be. You can bridge this if you want. You do have to keep the joint closed so you could pressurize the tubing to make the seal. You always want to make seals with tubing with air pressure, because they just make it nice and smooth and the glass flows beautifully from one piece to the other. Now we have a little bit of a line there. You can see it in this shot, and we need that line to disappear for this to be a true hot seal, and it's not going to crack and break on us when we're using it. So what I'm going to do now, I lowered my flame down to a much more pinpoint flame. I would have used my Smith mini torch, but that was not within arm's reach, so I just turned down my GTT torch, and I'm heating up all that glass, getting it nice and juicy hot, and just letting it flow one right into the other and readjusting as needed. And we're going to work in about quarter sections. This way the joint doesn't start to move. So I heated up one side. Now I'm going, let it cool down, and I'm heating up the other side. And we're doing the same thing. We want to get that joint nice and juicy hot. I'm making sure if it puffed out a little bit too much to smush it back in place and keep that seal looking nice and clean. Dropping my graphite on my lap, and we are doing good. Again, this is one of those videos where I could have remade it like 3 times, but I just everything was going wrong again, like with the GoPro in the beginning, and then like my back camera battery died and didn't record certain parts that I really wanted to record. So maybe I'll remake this video in the future. But for now, you guys really get the idea of what's going on. The part that got cut off was when I used the ring saw to cut the ends open of the joint and of the cup. But that's all right, because again, like I said, you still get the full picture of what's going on here. Right now, just working that seal, making sure the glass flows nice and smoothly, and we're just going to work on that for a few minutes. Again, this is like what holds your whole piece together, so you want to make sure it's good. And if the glass starts to sag like it's doing to me, just, gently put it back in place. Not a big deal. You need to be gentle with the glass, and sometimes you need to show it what to do. So keep that in mind as you, go on your glass blowing journey. Sometimes the glass knows what to do, and sometimes you have to give it a little bit of help and guidance. Kind of like people, or children, I should say. All right, this is looking pretty good. We're getting a nice smooth joint in there. Oh yes, remember to flash the bottom, because you did gather some glass there and you don't want that to crack on you. So just every now and then flash that puck, and keep that nice and toasty and happy. Always have to keep the glass happy. All right, still working that seal, but we're almost done. And that line should be completely gone when you have a nice hot seal in there. That's what's amazing about glass, is once you get it molten and you stick the 2 pieces together, they flow right into one another, which is just like amazing to see. And it's like a real treat to watch as 2 separate pieces become like one solid piece. It's really, really cool. So yeah, still working that seal. But like I said, we're almost done. And if you guys have not already smashed the like button, kindly do so at this point, because you can see how much effort goes into just making this connection. And you can see I'm also rocking my ilgm.com sweatshirt, which they are awesome for, seeds and whatnot. And there's a link in my description below if you want to go check that out. Right now I have finished the seal, and that is looking pretty good. I'm putting on a nice annealing flame to take a little bit of that stress out of the glass before we continue to the next step, which is cracking this off, cutting open the ends, and polishing it nice and smooth. You do need a ring saw or some kind of wet saw to cut the ends open. I do not recommend trying to blow this open, because you will not get the nice sharp edges that you want for this kind of piece. So we're going to build up a little bit of soot on there. You're going to see it's going to get very black, but that's okay. That comes off. It kind of looks like I roasted the glass a little bit too much. It's not a problem. That comes off with, a rag or something. You do need to wait for the glass to cool down before you touch anything on it, though. So right now I'm getting my carbide blade. Excuse me. I'm getting my carbide blade, and I did make a little score in the glass. You could see it right there, right above that graphite marver. It's a tiny little white scratch. And what we're going to do is shock this glass and crack it off. And we'll be good to go. I like to show different methods of, cutting the glass. And especially when you work with different wall thicknesses, you have to know the best way to get the results you want. So for this one, I'm going to shock the glass. I made the score mark. I'm heating up a rod till it's nice and molten hot. And what I'm going to do is touch that to that line that I made, and then take a water dropper and put a few drops on the glass, and that should crack it. Sometimes you get a nice clean crack. Sorry, my wrist is blocking here. And sometimes it's a little bit jaggedy. I'll give you a spoiler. This one's going to be jaggedy. So just a quick heads up on that. Right now, just letting that heat build up in that tube. Drop, drop, drop. You should hear a crack. And it should start to run around your tube, and then you'll know you're good. I don't think you could see it in the camera, but I saw it because I was sitting right there in front of the glass. Now you got to give it a couple taps. Tap-a-roos, boom, 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 tappity, tap, tap. There we go, cracked off. You can see again, it's jaggedy, but that's not a problem. I brought it over to the ring saw and cut it straight. And I also cut open the end. There, I'm just showing you what's going on. And I also cut open the end of the joint that's still closed at this point. Looking pretty good. Nice and sooty. All right, now we're over at the polishing machine, and this is where I just do the final flattening and putting the chamfers on any sharp edges. This way everything is nice and smooth. I'm just flattening out what was left over by the ring saw. So again, it has that beautiful, flat, smooth finish to it, which those details make a big difference in your finished pieces. You want them to look as good as you possibly can. Especially in pipe work, like people go crazy over pipe work. So you want to make this as smooth and beautiful and even as you can. I think maybe my next video will be bubble caps, because you do need bubble caps when you make this type of piece. Now I'm just putting that chamfer on to smooth out that sharp edge. Just swirl it around a couple times on the grinding machine. Make sure everything feels good and looks good. Run your finger across and make sure it's not too sharp. And you can see how nice and smooth that is now. Looking good. Looking pipey. And now we're going to add the chamfer to the joint piece. And this is really just cosmetic. You don't have to do that. And I also am smoothing out the bottom as well. That's what I'm doing right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the chamfer on the edges. Boom, just gently touch it down, swirl it around, and get that nice and smooth. I am not putting a lot of pressure on the glass. If you want to remove more material, you could put more pressure. So I'm just putting very light pressure because I only want to take off a little bit of material. I didn't want to remove a giant amount of glass. Your goal is to just get it nice and smooth and looking pretty. I use the edge of the wheel here so I can get a little bit more range of motion and not accidentally polish glass that I didn't want to. And there we go. Let's see if we can get that. Is the chamfer coming focus? No, kind of not really. But that's looking pretty good. We're going to test that out on our pipe right now. This is another 14 millimeter female joint. This piece should look familiar from my last video where I tested out the other 14 millimeter, and boom, it fits beautifully and awesome, and it's nice and tight. It's not ground, but it doesn't have to be ground. Glass on glass makes a very tight seal. Thanks so much for checking out the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, Patreon, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video.